All right, in this video, we are going to make a health system for our player. So we are going to start with our T07 tutorial 7 enemies as a base because I'm going to want to get damage from those enemies. So I'm just going to copy that game folder. We'll paste it into here and we'll rename that folder as T08 Health. And we'll open up Godot, and we'll just open up that game in Godot. All right, so a lot of this stuff is actually going to happen in the code. So let's go to our player.gd, and in the variables, we're going to add a couple of variables. We'll say var max health. This is the full health of the player, and we'll say it's 100. You can put any number that you want. It's totally up to you. And then we're going to say another variable, and we'll call this variable health. Basically, we're saying the current health of the player. You could call it current health if you want. I'll just call it health. And what is this going to be at the beginning of the game when the player is first created? Well, it's going to be the same as whatever the max health, because the player starts off with the maximum amount of health. So we set that variable of health to equal the max health, which is 100. So now health is also 100. I'm going to add some functions into my player.gd. So this is the physics process function, and so we'll go underneath that one. So right against the left edge, we'll add a new function. We'll call it something like take damage. You could call it what you want, but I'll call it take damage. This time we're going to put a parameter into our function. When we call this function, we're going to give it something inside the brackets, which is how much damage we want the player to actually take. And so we'll go to our health, and minus equals amount, which is, as I just said, the amount of damage that we want to take. We're going to minus that from health. And we're going to say if our health is less than or equal to 0, we're going to call another function that I'm about to write, which is die. So that's for taking damage. Let's make another function. And this one is called heal. And this is in case we are able to heal ourselves. And we're just going to say health equals, basically we're saying health plus amount. Okay, but the problem with just this, so, whatever amount I'm going to heal plus whatever my current health was. But what if my current health was already at the maximum level? What am I going to do? Now I'm going to have a health that's more than my maximum. So I'm going to modify this slightly, and I'm going to put min of health plus amount and max health. So that means we're going to take two things here, 1 and 2, and we're going to take the min, or the smallest of these two. So it's going to calculate health plus amount, and then it's going to look at max health, and whatever is smaller is what my health is going to be. So that's the min function. Pretty useful. There's also the max function, which works similarly, except it looks for the bigger number. Okay. And finally, I made this function here, which is giving me an error because I haven't written that function yet. Die. Let's write that function now. So func die. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do queue free. And that will end the player. So now that I've made these functions for the player to determine the health amount, I'm going to make the player take some damage. All right, I'm going to go to my enemy from the previous tutorial. You remember I forgot to rename, so it's this one, character body 2D. This is my enemy. As a child of the root node, I'm going to add an area 2D, and I'm going to add a child to the area 2D, which is going to be collision shape. In the area 2D, we'll add a signal to body entered, connected to our main script for the enemy. and that will create the onArea2D body entered, and we'll give it a little bit of code. So if body dot has method take damage, then we'll say body dot take damage, and we'll say 25. Okay, so what's happening here? So body entered, and it gives us this body right here. So this is, of course, the player, because the player has collided with the enemy. So this body is the player. If the player has the method take damage, well, let's go to the player.gd, and oh, look, it does have that. So yes, it does. So this if is true, and then we'll do this, which is calling, so body, which is the player, so player.takeDamage, so it's calling this function right here, and it's giving it this 25 in the brackets, which is that amount. So take damage 25. So the player is then going to run this code because of this function call. And then it goes to the player.gd, and then of course health minus equals amount. Amount was 25, so health is reduced. And then if health is now less than 0, it's going to say die. So let's see if our code works. We need to be able to see what the health of the player is. So I'm just going to, how should we do it? Let's just, in the physics process of player.gd, we can just print the health. No quotation marks, because health is a variable. If I use quotation marks for health, it will literally print the word health. I don't want it to do that because I want it to print the number. And so it should do that every frame of the game. And then in die, let's also get it to print die so that we know if it dies. We'll run the game. And we can see in the console, it is printing 100 every frame of the game. And then if I touch the enemy, didn't seem to trigger anything. Must have made a mistake somewhere. Let's just take a quick look here. So I believe in this collision shape for the area 2D, I do need to add a shape. So let's just add that rectangle, and we'll see if it works now. So I'm just going to do some troubleshooting. What I'm going to do is, I'm not sure if, okay, number one, I'm not sure if we're going into this function, because if we're not going into this function, then nothing's going to happen, because none of this stuff ever happens. So I need to check first if I'm even going into the function. Next thing is I'm going to check, okay, is this true or not? Because if this is not true, then this function does not get called, right? And then the next thing I need to check is in player.gd, I need to check like what's happening over here. Okay, so first I'm going to check if I'm even going into this function, because if I am not going into this function, then I need to deal with that first before I do anything else. So this is why I said print hello here, because if it does print hello, I know that I'm actually going into this function. So I'm trying to narrow down where the problem actually is. And so this is the approach that you can use when you're having a problem or a bug in the code, is you can see, first you need to narrow down where the problem is, and you can do that by printing things into the console, because you know that, if it actually goes there, that stuff is going to print. Run the game, touch the player. it did not print, it didn't print anything. Oh, wait a minute, it did. Okay, interesting. So it's only working if I am entering the enemy, if I'm colliding with the enemy from above for some reason. And I'm gonna guess that this is because maybe this collision shape that I have for the enemy is a little bit too small. So I'm like landing on top of the enemy. I'm landing on this collision shape here, and I'm not actually touching this collision shape. And so I'm gonna expand this to be just a slightly bigger, and I'm gonna make this one just, this one just slightly smaller. Looks like it is kind of inside that one. And let's try that again. 100, 75, 50, 25, 0, and then player disappears, and it does say die. All right, so it is working there, and we saw how I do a little bit of troubleshooting, and that is how you can approach troubleshooting. Number one is narrow down where the problem actually is. This is also why we try to test often, because if we write a whole bunch of code, like we spend an hour doing a bunch of stuff and never testing it, it's going to be really hard to know what the problem actually is. But if you do like 2 minutes of work and test, and then 2 minutes of work and then test, at most, you know exactly when it stopped working, when it broke. So you know somewhere in that 2 minutes of stuff that you just did is where the problem is. And so that's a reason why you should like test frequently, is when you do have problems, this is, you know, a better way to figure out and try to narrow down where the problem actually is. All right, so that's it for health. Obviously, there are other things that can happen. You know, your player dies, and so you have some kind of animation, or you have a health bar. So these kind of topics will be covered in future tutorials. For now, this is all for today, and so we'll see you in the next one.